The Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Planted with Sara Payan podcast. I'm Sara Payan, your host, and today I have two very special guests. I have the co-founders of the United Empowerment Party. I have MC, DJ, producer, and actor Redman, and the president of the UEP, Sephida Artis-Mills, on the show today. Welcome. I am thrilled to have you both here today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And we've got a lot to dig into today. But before we do that, I'd like to hear from both of you what your first cannabis experience was. And it doesn't have to necessarily be consumption if you don't want it to be. It could be when you understood the importance or just your earliest, notion of that it existed.
My first experience was like when I was like maybe 12 years old, rolling it, and I ain't have no paper, so I rolled it in tissue.
How did that go?
It was horrible. It was horrible. And then and then it's around the same time, like my uncles, right? They took me hunting in Alabama, and I think they were the first ones that kind of introduced me to it, because we was hunting in Alabama, and they gave me a rifle because I was all right, at that age of, shooting, because they used to take me hunting with them a lot. But they let me hit the joint like at maybe 13 or something like that. And I hit the joint and it was like, wow, like, what is this? And then when I had my opportunity to shoot the rabbit that ran past my foot, I just poked at it. I didn't even pull the trigger.
Wow.
I was just so high at that age, like I didn't even know what was going on. I just poked at it at the ground, and I knew to shoot because I have shot before, but it just sent me somewhere left, and I knew that I was going to be smoking from there on in.
How about you, Sephida?
My first experience, I was younger, just being around like friends, older cousins, and I didn't really get into it really until I got older. So I'm more probably a later bloomer than the average person, but I just remember just how my body felt. And it was so calming and so relaxing, and it really threw me into the medicinal component of it and what happens versus like smoking versus, edibles, because it definitely is a different experience. For me, edibles tend to hit me a little bit faster than the average person, but it doesn't come on strong for me. It's always gradual, even if it's not like nano. But I just remember feeling like, okay, what is the issue? Like, why do people, feel the way that they feel about it? And even just being around it so much younger, I never saw the harm in it because of the difference between seeing how people were with cannabis versus alcohol. Like, alcohol was the thing for me that I was like, how can you compare the two when I would see people act completely different with alcohol opposed to cannabis? So that early on, I always had questions about why this was demonized so much when I only saw it help people, or people be calm, and people, not experience high levels of pain that I knew had certain chronic illnesses. So I was always a very inquisitive kid. So my mind automatically went to, well, somebody doesn't want this to get out there, that it's helping people and that this is medicine. So, the experience from younger to being older, like as I was older, it just gave me a deeper understanding and sent me into doing so much research about how people can use it and all the different ways that it benefited people, whether you smoked it or whether you were using tinctures and edibles and things like that. So both experiences were great for me. It just was something that I, as a younger person, just I had a lot of questions that a lot of people could not answer. So that just kind of sent me into doing a lot of research over time. So
Yeah, I hear that. I was a precocious kid. I was 13 the first time I tried it. I was like, I just wanted to experience the world. And I remember thinking how relaxed it was. I didn't realize that I had anxiety. And then I was like, when I got older, I had cancer when I was in my 30s, and I started using it medicinally. And that's when I started really getting curious. I was like, wait a minute. I mean, you hear about that. And, you know, I remember being younger and jokingly taking a puff and going, yeah, it's for my glaucoma. You know, and just kind of being like, whatever. But
yeah,
then
we all got glaucoma, huh?
right, right. But then you start to see the benefits that it has and how people can, like for myself, there were, you know, anti-nausea drugs and opiates that I didn't have to take during my treatment that would have had other harmful side effects. And it was just a really amazing part of my journey. And even then, I didn't think I would be getting into cannabis. I didn't do that until I was going back to school and decided not to go back in the office. I was working in nonprofit. And my work in nonprofit was around economic justice and civil rights. And then when I got into cannabis, and while I was going back to school, I all of a sudden realized that this was also about economic justice and personal freedoms. And the stigma that we were dealing with cannabis was something that was a construct. And so I think talking to you both today, like about what you're doing and how so much of this is about encouraging critical thought and really looking at how do we save cannabis from becoming a consumer packaged good that's coming out of large corporations that has no heart and a really bad terp profile. You know, and really like supporting small businesses and craft farmers and creating abundance that stays in our communities. And so I want to talk about the United Empowerment Party. I know that there was more to that came up to being the United Empowerment Party. And I want to hear more from both of you, the story of how you came up with it and what you're doing with it. When I was looking at, Sephida, I was looking at your bio online, and in your words, you said that it's a federally recognized political party organized to aid and support the education of cannabis as medicine, the creation of jobs for nonpartisan research and development of cannabis within the United States, and equity empowerment to ensure equal opportunity, which calls for an inclusive and economically sustainable industry. Our mission champions common sense regulation of cannabis into our society through education, scientific advancement, and economic growth. And when I read that, it was like, I mean, when we met at MJ BizCon, I was like, you just made my heart sing. But when I read this, I was just like, yes, yes, yes.
it was like a warm hug.
It really was.
I mean, for us, it's going to take a lot of education to normalize cannabis use. I feel like in so many respects, although it's legal in multiple states, people may not even realize how some of us, even in the industry, are still kind of tiptoeing around it and not really normalizing it in a way where we can see cannabis in many different spaces, which was one of the reasons why we recently had a cannabis and gaming tournament, which went amazing. And that is just one way that we look at getting people to see cannabis differently, educating them on what it is, which is medicine, and taking the opportunity to break out of these bubbles and silos that we tend to find ourselves in within the industry, because we can talk to each other all day long. We can go to the conferences to be talking to the people who don't know and who don't understand, and really empowering the culture in a way to where it can really be the driving force behind that initiative, because it's going to take all of us, and it's going to take us talking to those in leadership and those who are in positions of power that make decisions regarding cannabis in a way where they can understand, so that there is sound policy and legislation that's built around this plant and this, industry. And culture drives community so much. And we also have to make sure that we're preserving the culture in this industry that will help us combat the it becoming a consumer packaged good, as you said, that is just driven by, corporate greed, not about empowering the plant and the people and community, but just about profit. And if it's just simply driven by profit, we're not going to see people get the full benefit of this plant. We're going to see synthetics, and we're going to see chemicals, and we're going to see filler, and we're going to see things that is actually going to diminish the plant and not going to give people what they need. And it's going to be a great misrepresentation of the plant in a way where it will send us backwards instead of really progressing the industry forward, as well as progressing the array of products and the efficacy of those products, and making sure that they're consistent regardless of what market you're purchasing them in. So it's extremely important for us to uphold that. And what better way than to create a party that is going to make sure that happens, but also using cannabis as a catalyst for change all across the board when it comes to civic engagement and politics as it pertains to people and communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Red, what are your thoughts?
Basically what sis said. I'm like, I talk from a more layman terms because my sister is extremely smart. And she also helped me educate myself as well. But in layman terms, our goal is to give the plant back to the people at the end of the day. And in order for us to do that, we have to galvanize, and we have to bring understanding to all cannabis businesses that, we can't complain about the unjust that's going on in the industry, because it is political at the end of the day, right? But then again, there's no one that has the umbrella like we do to get to a point where we can start making solutions, having solutions. Like sis said, we come to these events in Vegas and New York and wherever they have cannabis events at, and we're just displaying our product, but we don't have any solutions at the end of the day. And the solution is first uniting. And I think that's one major thing that this cannabis industry lacks is unity. We're over 160 million, 70 million strong cannabis voters, and we all know it's power in the numbers, right? In order for us to make change, we must galvanize under one umbrella to make change. We can't be over here, and we're all educated. If you notice, when you go to these conventions, everyone has a story, everyone has knowledge, but we're not putting it to use the right way to get a solution. Like we talked about earlier, the 50% tax in Seattle, that's ridiculous. And it's going to continue happening that way unless we all stand and make a change. And the only way we're going to do that is come under one umbrella. And maybe we can make our own rules and regulations of what taxes should be in each state. When big pharma come in, they're just waiting in the wings. All right. And we have not that much time to get what we need to get together as an industry. That's why the United Empowerment Party is a good fabric for everyone to just take a look at. We have to educate ourselves, and we have to bring more awareness what we're about, so people can understand that not just by joining us, we're not going against anyone out there or your business. We're what you say, a political party. We're no different from the Republican and Democratic Party. We're a cannabis party, United Empowerment Party, and we're here to make change. And our main goal is to deschedule cannabis. That is the real main goal. While they're trying to reschedule cannabis and people not really having the education of what rescheduling is, we want to teach them about, descheduling, why we should deschedule it. But at the end of the day, there's no platform like us that's willing to go and put our 10 toes on the line for the plant, go out here to knock heads with these politicians, hold these politicians accountable for their word, stop getting in the office and not holding their word on what they say they're going to do for the cannabis industry and using it as a stepping stone. Me and my sister talk about that all the time. These politicians just use this as a stepping stone and get in the office and don't do anything. It's a million things we can talk about the unjust in the cannabis industry, but we're here to make a change at the end of the day. And that's what it is. And that's why we encourage people to even just take a look at our website, take a look at the work that we're doing. make sure it's for you. But at the end of the day, we first must unite. That is the first key. Like, I don't have to be smart to know that. I don't have to know like everything about the industry to know that. I know from me putting my toes on the line for this cannabis plant back in the 90s, where it wasn't understood, where you considered cannabis is crack. You might as well say cannabis was crack, trying to understand it in the 90s. Feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Put my career on the line, putting the accolades I could have got if I hadn't have said I used cannabis in the 90s. A lot of companies didn't, deal with us because of who understand what it is to stand for something that you love. And it's not just a plant, it's medicine at the end of the day, right?
Right.
So that's why we want to let everyone know the first step is unity. No matter how much we talk, no matter how many podcasts we do, the first step is unity and understanding and awareness, and most of all, educating yourself about it. And not just about the plant, the business of the plant, of what's going on, because it's only a matter of time before Big Pharma come in.
Humboldt Family Farms is rooted in the legendary hills of Northern California, where cannabis isn't just grown, it's lived. As one of the top sun-grown cannabis brands in the state, Humboldt Family Farms represent a collective of multi-generational family-run farms deeply committed to sustainable practices, environmental stewardship, and the craft of cultivation. Every harvest reflects decades of knowledge and a deep respect for the land, the plant, and the people who enjoy it. Now, they're partnering with Surfer Magazine and Embark for a first-of-its-kind collaboration, the first time in Surfer's 65-year history that they've ever partnered with a cannabis brand. The drop includes Humboldt Family Farms' iconic Maui Wowie flower and Hawaiian Fanta pre-rolls. You'll find the collab exclusively at Embark locations across California, and a limited number are dropping as part of Embark's weekly Getaway Bag series, a fresh tote every Friday packed with California's best cannabis. And it sells out every time. Embark has earned its place as California's most trusted cannabis dispensary, but they're not just selling cannabis. They're creating experiences that connect people to the plant and proving that it can be a force for good. They're pioneering what normalization looks like, bringing legal sales and consumption to places no one thought possible, like the California State Fair and Cali Roots. This summer, they'll do it again at Dead & Company's 60th anniversary in Golden Gate Park, followed by their 5th year at Outside Lands, with Humboldt Family Farms right alongside them. Every Embark location gives back 1% of sales to its local community, helping fund youth drug prevention programs and logging thousands of volunteer hours across California. A collaboration like this with Surfer Magazine and Humboldt Family Farms is an extension of this mission. It proves that cannabis can exist in mainstream culture, that it belongs in iconic spaces alongside one of the most demanding sports in the world. This is what progress looks like. For more information, visit Humboldt Family Farms at HumboldtFamilyFarms.com, Embark at GoEmbark.com, and Surfer Magazine at Surfer.com. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's like they say, if you don't have a seat on the table, you'll be on the menu.
Right.
That's a good term. I like that. I like that.
That's one of my favorite.
I like
favorite
that.
quotes. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think one of the biggest disconnects that we have, I started working in cannabis when we were a movement. We hadn't really become an industry yet. I mean, part of my training for staff was, if the feds come, this is what we're doing. Put your hands in the air, look your patient in the eye and say, everything's okay. Just do it. It's like, but we've gone into this industry and we've lost a lot of people who care deeply about what they're doing and have had grown beautiful flowers and created beautiful medicine for people. And for as much as there is, like, as somebody asked me one day, what's your favorite thing about the industry? I'm like, the people. I'm like, what's your least favorite thing about the industry? And I said, the people.
That's a whole fact.
But it's the people with heart that are doing the right thing. And then we have this cage match for relevancy as a nascent industry where people get so caught up in their brand and what they're looking at rather than working with other people and really getting things done. And
Yes.
especially with the bipartisan disconnect that we have nowadays, it makes it even more difficult because we have politicians that may consume cannabis, may even have no problem with cannabis, but they won't back it because of a party line that they don't want to cross. So how do we create these better conversations to bring people together and to have them work together on this so that we can create a healthier environment where the businesses, small businesses are supported, the money that's created by these businesses is fueling their communities, and we're also creating, job opportunities and professional development for people in these areas as well.
Well, I could say, just starting off, when we have these events, when we have like MJ Biz, we don't just have brands there, we have the community there. We have the legacy there talking. We need to, in order for us to understand each other, everyone has to be in the room.
Yeah.
You can't just be inviting the MSOs and the guys that invested millions in this cannabis industry. We need to invite the streets. We need to invite the moms and pops. But because the tickets are so high and they trying to capitalize financially, it shuts out that part. So we never get to hear their testimony. We never get to hear what they go through. We never get to hear what they're thinking. So I think just one, by really just inviting the community, because it's about the community.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's super important. I mean, conversation is normalization, whether it's about somebody bringing their experiences to the table or somebody attending because they're curious, especially I think with our elders who have seen the impact of the war on drugs. And so the stigma may be strong with them. They're like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. But, in a lot of cases, it's also keeping them from a lot of healing that they could be doing instead of taking some of the medications that they are.
Right.
No, I totally agree. And I stand with my brother with the same sentiment. We can't keep talking to each other. You do have to invite the community, and you do need to have legacy there. I mean, the industry was built off of it. How do you leave the people out that are the foundation of what we see today, and that honestly have a better understanding of the plant than any of these people that are jumping in, don't know anything about it. Products are not great or consistent. They're not growing properly. So therefore, they don't know what to look for. People buying products in, legal dispensaries across states where they're finding mold and all kinds of things because there's people who are growing it that don't have a clue what they're doing. And they don't have anyone on their staff or on their team that understands it either. So you have people that are only thinking about the money, and they figure as long as we can package it and we can somehow get it through testing, which is a whole other animal by itself, because you have people lab shopping, you have people that if they can pay enough money, they can get a product to pass through that could be very harmful to the consumer. So these are all things that, that are happening that there's no conversation around. There's no solutions being brought to the table. Said the only way we can get to those solutions, like Red said, having everyone in the room, because you can't just talk to some of the people, and the people who are actually impacted by this in the community as a patient and consumer, as people who have, gone to prison, or people who have family members in prison. You have to have all these people in the room, because from their perspective and their experience, they will add so much value to the conversation and how we can get to the best solutions. And some things we have to do ourselves and lead by example, because government is slow. Like that, I cannot emphasize that enough. They do not move at the same rate that we do. And that sense of urgency isn't there, especially with cannabis, because they already don't understand it. So some things we have to build ourselves, and we have to show proof of concept, because sometimes when you go and do that and it's successful, and you're creating a market demand that forces a market response, is what I call it. So now the people are determining and deciding, okay, we want this because this works. And so now you push the elected officials and all those that make those decisions to follow your lead, because the people are speaking, and they're speaking loudly. And if you have a certain number of people doing that, now they have no other choice. So there's some things that we have to build ourselves and show that it works, because a workable model can get you through the door much faster than just talking about something in theory. When you actually have a concept that you can prove how it works, you can show numbers, you can show data, that is going to open doors a lot faster, because you're not waiting for them to do something. You're forcing them to do something based off of what you've.
Absolutely. And when you get the people involved, you get them fired up politically, and that's when those elected officials realize they have an outdated view of who the average cannabis consumer is, and that their proposals can't be through the lens of stigma, or they're not going to get their votes and get their jobs.
That's right. It's power in numbers.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely. So, some of the things that we tried to do early on in legalization, especially here in California, we were having, and I know it's in other states as well, but we were having the conversations about social equity. People who had been families should be supported in abundance and success in the cannabis industry. And even though it is a very essential thing to have, I feel like there has definitely been some people who have benefited from it that weren't meant to. Like here in California, we've had a lot of equity operators that have been misled by people who have wanted to invest and use their equity licenses, to the point where they basically get pushed out of the endeavor once they're no longer needed. What have you been seeing? What do you think we can do to help alleviate some of this?
I'll start. So that is something that I have been seeing here in New York, but also just across the board in multiple states. There's so many states where there were people coming in with capital that wanted to take advantage of the discount that came with, being a part of a social equity license, and only to be able to provide that money, but like you said, pushing them out, because if they don't meet certain expectations, if they have an operating agreement that requires certain things and that person doesn't meet those expectations, and there's fine print there that they didn't read or that they didn't understand, that says, well, if you don't do this, we can now take over your company, or our 40, 50, 60% will go to 70% if this isn't met. Just giving an example. And it's extremely predatory, and the states should be doing more, because they're definitely not doing enough or anything at all to stop the predatory behavior, especially being that these investors already know the disadvantage that most of these social equity applicants have, and that is the lack of capital. The access to capital is a huge barrier just traditionally for those that qualify under social equity, because of the very low percentage of individuals that get access to capital traditionally, let alone in cannabis. And then, of course, it still being federally illegal. So you can't get an SBA loan. You can't go through any kind of programming that is controlled by the federal government. So then that leaves your options slim to either private investors or venture capital firms, or, companies that just started springing up all over the place that said, hey, we'll offer capital to cannabis businesses, but you have to have a certain credit score. You have to have, certain things. So then there's a barrier, because there's a lot of social equity applicants that honestly don't have that either. So
Right.
you have so many barriers to entry that makes a lot of them desperate. And out of that desperation breeds predators. And so you have these people that come in and say, oh, I'll help, but they're only there to try to find a way in so that they can ultimately take over, push them out of the business. Or if the person finds that they're not really making much money, they're like, oh, well, I'll just take this check and, keep moving. And the money that they take, is nothing compared to what they would have gotten if they were able to just stick it out and have the right partner, where that partner is helping them, building with them, growing with them, so that they can have a profitable business and is not there to take over, that business. So yeah, we see that a lot. And one of the reasons why we don't use the term social equity, we call it equity empowerment. And I came up with that term some years ago because I feel that true equity is empowering people through resources, education, mentorship, and access to capital so that they can have a business that is profitable and thriving, because from that business will come community reinvestment. And that community reinvestment is important so that people who have transferable skills that may not know anything about cannabis, they can now enter the workforce. So they can now set up ancillary businesses that are going to support the plant touching business, because there's a lot that still has to be built around that so that we can support and sustain the plant. So it definitely needs to change, and we need to actually come up with what that equity empowerment looks like, and not just throwing a buzzword around that really doesn't exist in any market, because we can't say there's one state that has a successful social equity program.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I like your reframing of it as well. I think it would be wonderful if, instead of them being partners with the people with money, if it could almost be an incubator. Like, the people who are supporting them, they might get some sort of benefit from doing it, but it's not taking the business. They have to successfully help these people launch and let them go free.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get the benefits, because it's crazy to see what's been happening to people. And, you know, I was on the equities subcommittee for the state, and you hear these stories about how hard it is to get funding and how family and friends have invested. And, you know, I don't know what it's like in New York, but here in California, you have to invest in a physical location and all these things before you even before you're even approved. You have to have it all in place. So you're spending money before you're making it. And people end up in very hopeless holes because of this. And so it's not, I wish that the regulators and the politicians would understand that it is not serving their constituents. I mean, we're as strong as every single person that's in our wherever we live. Like, if one person is not doing well, it doesn't bode well for the rest of society. So if we're not serving people, like here in California, like we were talking before we're recording, if people are late on their taxes in cannabis, it's 50% interest. Regular businesses are 10%. And so we are going to be seeing major extinction events here. The state has such high taxation that they're upset that the traditional market is blossoming. Whereas when we first had legalization here in California, I know a few people who grow or who had, you know, their guy that they would go to. They're like, yeah, they're not around anymore because they figure nobody's going to come to them because everyone's going to dispensaries. Well, that changed very quickly here. And so now the state is spending all this money on enforcement. They're upset that they're not getting as much taxes in the stores. Nothing turned out the way that it should have. Whereas if they had given all of these people an easy way to enter the market with a low bar of entry, because I know that there are some thrill seekers out there that like to do things just because they're illegal. I'm not saying that there isn't that. And it's like, okay, do your thing, whatever. But most people don't want to be looking over their shoulders. They want to do business. They want to have, you know, wealth for their families and not be in fear of getting busted. And I don't know why it's so hard when it comes to cannabis. Or maybe it's just an eye-opener that in government in general, they all need to take an Econ 101 class and just learn more about how businesses run. I don't know. But it just seems like the cannabis law, cannabis policy is a great way to learn that everybody in the government doesn't know as much as we think that they do. And it really depends on who's educating them and who has their ear. And a lot of times that's who has the money.
Yes.
At the end of the day, we must educate ourselves. Okay.
Yeah.
This cannabis industry is no different than any business out there. There's sharks waiting in the wing to take over the little guys. That's in every business. That's why in Jersey, we created the first of its kind technical assistance program where you get to go and learn about the fabric, the business of cannabis. And you can sign up for free, $1,000 of grants to help your business out once you graduate. And it's the first of its kind. It's in New Jersey. We created it along with the team, with Sis and Leo Bridgewaters and a gang of other people. Sis can give you the name. But we found out it was very important that people take the initiative first to educate themselves, not just jump into business and say, I want to be in the cannabis industry without any education. Because that's when the big guys, the sharks, they come in and know you're not educated. That's why people are being taken advantage of. So the solution here is we must educate ourselves first before jumping into any business, just like anyone else would do. If you want to learn about something, you want to do something, you want to go after something, a business in life, any goal that you want, you're going to research. You're going to actually ask questions. You're going to learn. You want to learn so you can protect yourself in the long run. And that is what's missing. Mm-hmm. Like I used to tell Sis, like, being that I sold cannabis as a legacy, like half my life, a lot of us are not educated linguistically on how to talk the right language in the cannabis industry. So they get lost. They don't know what MSOs are. They don't know the terms that's used in the cannabis industry. It's a lot to this because it is a $1 trillion industry and it's not going to be easy to get. So of course there's going to be sharks waiting in the wing for any business. That's why we encourage you and people out there at the end of the day. Yeah, in a minute, babe. That's why at the end of the day, we encourage everyone to just educate yourself. Go the limit and find out as much as you can about the business you want to do in the cannabis industry. And there's so many other angles besides dispensaries. It is so many angles you can touch. So like Sis and I, that's why we're 10 toes for equality. But our main goal is to really let people know, look, you really have to educate yourself, especially people of our culture. And that's why people are being taken advantage of because of lack of education and knowledge on what it takes to sustain a license, sustain your business. It's like I said, it's no different than any other business out there. Even in the music business, it's sharks waiting to take my place. You feel me? It's sharks waiting to take UEP place. They see what we doing. They like, okay, we're gonna wait and see what they do. And I'm hoping they mess up, but we're not, because we're educating ourselves in the long run while we're trying to help people. So the main solution to this, what we're talking about, is people need to stand up, take a stand to educate themselves before they jump into business.
Are you looking for a lasting, meaningful way to connect with your audience and highlight your brand? Well, listen up, because Planted with Sara Payan is taking on new sponsors. Here's a powerful stat. 20% of listeners are more likely to support brands they hear about on a trusted podcast. And 60% actually look up that product after hearing about it. That's the power of podcasting. Planted with Sara Payan has a unique draw. With remarkable guests, we attract and engage audience that spans all sides of the cannabis spectrum. Picture your message reaching these listeners time and again. Podcast ads are evergreen, meaning your brand stays relevant as new audiences discover and binge past episodes. It's a long-term investment that keeps on giving. If you're looking for a targeted, passionate audience with lasting impact, the right listeners are here waiting to meet your brand. Visit plantedwithsara.com to get a copy of our sponsorship deck today.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the passion as an entrepreneur is not enough. You have to take that passion and turn to learning. I mean, we have this, and especially with how many people are drawn into cannabis, we have this unique opportunity to get young people involved in lots of different parts of the industry. I mean, who knew that supply chain management could be sexy? One of the most, I was like, that is so boring, but when you think about it in the lines of cannabis, like, that's engaging. That's a conversation that young people could be into. Like, there's so many different things, biochemistry, all these things that engage, minds. And I talk about young people because I just think about like, getting kids in school and keeping them in school. Like, because for myself, I had to go back. I got really bored, but if you have something that's like, that your heart and soul is into, you're going to stay through it. You're going to have a good career, and you can, and it can go into other areas as well. If you decide later on, hey, cannabis was fun and now I want to do something new. Like, it just gives you all these great skills.
Yes. And don't mean to cut you off.
Not
For
at all.
example, like with me being a smoker, as long as I've been smoking, I took an initiative to go to Amsterdam in Oakland to take a crash course there. Me and my buddy was just like, hey, hey, we've been smoking this plant for so long. There's a school for it. Wow. All right. And we went because we were inquiring the knowledge about it. Like, wow, there's more to this than just recreational. And we went there and we got a degree to be a licensed patient consultant. But when I went there and finding out so many properties about the plant and learning that it's more than just for recreational, is medicine, I learned a lot. And that's what I mean. It don't matter where you're from. If you're off the street, you can just take an initiative for yourself to educate yourself. There's so many programs that you can tune into. Like if you're in Jersey or if you're anywhere, check out what we're doing out there as far as the technical assistant program. You can go there and learn, take a crash course. So there's no excuses. Our job, me and my sister job and the whole team job of UEP is to leave no excuses for you not to educate yourself. States or for people to just tune in to learn about it so they can make a difference. You only can make a difference if you change the way you think at the end of the day. Yeah. So once you change the way you think and move, then you can make a difference. But if you're just still stuck in I would say the generational ignorance, just thinking you can just jump into something without educating yourself or researching, then you're going to keep on getting the same result. So that's what we really promote, on top of uniting as far as the cannabis industry, is really educating yourself and aware. Like I learned so much from my sister every time we talk, like every time we build, like I learn a lot from her because she is highly researched. You feel me? And we have to be vulnerable first, mentally be vulnerable to learn from each other. So it's a lot that plays a role here. And I talk from a more layman term because I know the streets. My sister know the streets. And it's a lot of people that move without accountability and being vulnerable and not able to have a chance to just listen and learn. But I'm gonna let you know now, anyone that's tuned in, if you want to get in this cannabis industry, like I said, I would advise you to educate yourself first.
It sounds like we need you guys across the nation.
Yes. It's really serious out there. Like, I didn't know how political it was till we got in the business. It's like, we jumped in. I knew following my sis, we were on a mission. But as we grow, like this is we just had our anniversary, right, sis? Like our 4 years.
4 years. The 26th.
4 years being
congratulations.
We've seen so much and so many stories out here, and their stories are not amplified because they're just pushed to the side. And that's why when we go to these events like MJ Biz and events in New York or wherever it is in California, there's not enough stories for people to get the picture of the legacy of the moms and pops. There's not enough of that. So we're never going to have that understanding on what goes on the other side. So we need that. We need that like more than anything, to hear both stories instead of just one-sided story of people who just invested their money and expect the grand total prize of being the number one industry or MSO. But that's why we're here.
What was the aha moment for both of you when you decided, let's do this?
Being told we couldn't.
Right.
Because that is fighting words for us. Like, serious. Do not tell me or him especially, we can't do something. Like, what? What do you mean we can't? Okay. It's like in New York, it's like, and Jersey, it's like that. I bet. That's what when you tell somebody that they can't do something or it's not possible, it's like, all right, I'm going to prove you wrong. And honestly, when we got the email from the FEC that said it was approved. Like we were just like, wait, is this real?
Yeah. First of all, we had to we
It's
stopped.
like, yay, and then it was like, oh my God, what do we do now?
Doing business with something else and moved to something else. And sis got that real quick, like real quick. It was like bang, because we was moving with a purpose over profit. That's what it was.
Absolutely. And for those who have been with us from the beginning, we started out as the National Cannabis Party. And it was so many. I mean, when you have cannabis that's another thing. When you're creating a business or anything in the cannabis space, it's already under a microscope. So if you have cannabis in the name, it doesn't matter who you are. We don't, of course, don't touch the plant at all. And I was like, we're like, you're the ones who approved, the party. But when it came down to banking, we would have accounts closed, no notice, no warning. And so we were like, this is not going to be sustainable if we can't maintain banking. And then there were other things that came up that was just challenging for us as a party, where we're like, okay, we can. And I know we love the name. I know we love what we've built, but it doesn't change what we've built in the mission. So we're going to have to change the name, which we did. And it was no pause. It was no hiccup. We just continue going, and people embraced it. And in fact, people loved United Empowerment Party even more because of just what it stands for. And like they say, there's a lot to a name. So we were able to still have that same momentum. And in fact, it just grew from there. And it didn't take us long to have the same recognition that we had when we first started. So, it was just a lot of love poured into it. There were a lot of people that came along and supported. And, our team, I always say we have a small but mighty team, and we've been able to do a lot with that team. And we appreciate everybody that's helped and supported, in multiple ways, and got us to this point, because it was hard, and it still is hard. There's still a lot of building that we have to do. We might make it look good, but
you do.
It's work, it's money out our pockets. It's, taking those 2 little pieces of lint and you're pocket and making a miracle out of it, because we believe in this so much, and we know that somebody has to do it, regardless of how hard it is, regardless of some days where you're just like, I'm done. Because we have those days. We have those days.
And believe us, Sarah, we had a lot of people that was on and a lot of people that left with us too. Yes. Like there's a lot of people. We had a whole team of people part of the team, and then it boiled down to a few, grew back a little bit, boiled down to a few. So we're actually like just, we seeing what people have the purpose, over the profit, because once they see nothing is coming in, that you really have to be 10 toes down, you really have to put in the work. It scares a lot of people. So believe me, we're still here. Shout out to Katie Weedy. She's 10 toes down with it. Katie work, But our goal, like I said, sir, earlier, is to deschedule. And I believe like once we do that, because we know that's going to happen, then we really put paint where that. That's one of the goals I want to see for our party to do, is to descheduleize it. Like that is the main goal.
It needs to happen. There's a lot of confusion around that. People think that rescheduling will solve the problem, but it's actually going to bring problems of its own.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one of the biggest pieces that we have been doing our very best to educate people on the differences between rescheduling and descheduling. Some people thought rescheduling was descheduling. Some people thought it was positive, because they're like, oh, they're going to reschedule it to a 3 that's less than a Schedule 1. And it's like, hold on, all Schedule 3 drugs are prescribed, which means you will need a doctor and you will need a pharmacist.
Yeah, there's no Xanax dispensaries anywhere that you can go to.
Exactly. So a dispensary owner is definitely not a doctor or pharmacist, and bud tenders are not pharmacy technicians. So you would have to be certified to be able to dispense it. And then, of course, you have to be a doctor to be able to prescribe it. So that puts it directly in the hands of the FDA and ultimately Big Pharma. So that would just give us cannabis in pill form, because you're not getting flower over the counter. And secondly, it takes years just to be able to get an approved drug. So how long would that take for them to even come up with a pill or oral suspension of some sort that people can take without all the extra added filler and chemicals? And who's to say they're going to actually use natural derivatives of the plant? They will use synthetic versions. They're already doing that now with the seizure medication that's on the market. So there's so much that people have to learn and understand to know that this does not benefit us. This actually just benefits an already enormous industry that's already making a ton of money off of pharmaceutical drugs that have so many issues and problems of their own. And it would just greatly diminish the impact and the power that this plant holds in having people heal themselves and having people get better and live a healthier life without using all of these drugs. Because just from my own experience as a caregiver, to my daughter, who also is a cannabis patient, she's 6, she'll be 7 this month on the 27th. And just knowing what cannabis has done for her as a heart transplant patient and how it has helped keep her out of organ rejection, which I learned from just doing research and seeing how cannabinoids interact with the body that reduces the likelihood of organ rejection. That can save so many lives, and people don't even know about it. So it's so many things that so many factors here, and why we need to completely deschedule it, not to mention just the fact that it would federally legalize it and federally decriminalize it. Moving it to a Schedule 3 will not. And I personally don't think anyone should feel comfortable with the Schedule 3, knowing that you're going to continue to make money while people still continue to sit in prison. So I'm like, unless you're okay with making money and thriving in an industry while people still sit in prison, I don't think that should be okay for anyone. So for us, it's like deschedule or nothing. Don't touch it or deschedule it. I don't think there should be any other options available, because we've seen that they've contradicted their own definition of what a Schedule 1 is by saying it has no medicinal value. But here we are with a whole medical market that's built around this plant. So it's like, why even keep it scheduled at all when you have already determined that this plant is medicinal? So let's completely deschedule it and open it up for the opportunity where everyone can get involved. Yes, there will be big corporate entities and big money that comes in, but like my brother said, that's going to happen regardless. There is no industry that you can keep big money out of. They're going to go where they want. But what we can do, we know that they don't understand and that they could never diminish is culture. And the power of the culture is such a force to be reckoned with, that if we really band together and work with each other and make sure that we all succeed and make sure that we're helping those that may be failing, like, okay, how can we come together and make sure that all of our businesses are thriving? How can we collaborate? How can we, create things, bringing multiple brands together? There's so many ways that we can empower culture in this industry that ultimately can beat those larger entities that are coming in, because they use us and they appropriate the culture through us in order for them to get sales. We can eliminate all of that just by working together and empowering that culture in a way where it's going to bring the consumers in. It's going to educate them in multiple ways by making it fun and engaging and going into those spaces where cannabis is not in currently, and making it normal. Because once it's accepted and people see it differently, we're going to see a very different industry. And the key to that is getting it completely descheduled and really opening it up so that people can truly understand what this is and therefore maximize the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I feel like the people who have their hearts in the right place, we find each other, and the people who are going to still be here are going to be the ones that actively make that choice to participate in community and to help preserve culture.
Mm-hmm. The culture speaks for itself. It
Yes.
always do. The culture always speaks for itself. And like Sis said, yes, there will be big pharma, and it will give them a chance to capitalize as well. if it is the schedule, like, no, when is the schedule? But like we just said, culture will speak for itself. The black market will never die. Let's be very clear that the black market will always sustain. Culture will speak for itself when it comes to the cannabis plant.
But
we're not worried about big pharma.
Yeah, but I feel like when we get into rescheduling, the traditional market will be more like, when I make my limoncello at home and I give it to people, nobody's going to give me a hard time about it. Like it's just going to be about you doing your thing on your own, not at large scale. Well, I mean, there might be large scale on that side, but if there's opportunities to enter the legal market in an easier way, how many people are going to do that? I mean, how many people are going to stay in the traditional market large scale? It would be more, I would imagine it would be more cottage industry, but what are your thoughts on that? I'm speculating, mind you.
I think that if there was an easier opportunity for them to get involved, and they don't have to deviate from what they've always done, I think that they would. And honestly, I always say my theory is always craft is always going very intentional, massive scaled operation to benefit and for it to make money. Because there's always going to be a large number of people that want something very specific. And if you're the one that's creating something that's very specific and that is consistent, and every time the person is using that product, they get the same results and they have a great experience, the experience is always going to drive more people to come to you, because word of mouth is still to this day the most effective way to market and advertise, because when people have a great experience, they're going to tell someone else, and then that person is going to tell someone else. And that's why I think if it's easier for them to come in, they're going to thrive, because they're creating an experience that is unforgettable for people, that is consistent, and that efficacy is there because they've been doing it for so long. So they know what works and what doesn't. So I would encourage them, honestly, to come in, because honestly, we need them. They have things that we can't afford to lose. They have genetics we can't afford to lose. They have methodologies and processes we can't afford to lose that the industry needs. So to leave them out of the conversation is a detriment to the industry. So I think if it was easier for them to come in and nobody try and change their formula and they can do their thing the same way they always have, I think that they would come in, and I think they would be happy to come in and do it that way, because they'll realize just how many people want what they have, and not just the group of people that they've always serviced, but they'd realize just how many more people need what they have. And I think that fulfillment alone would keep them in the space, and it would allow them to carve out just a piece of this industry that they will own and dominate. And that's the same way in every other industry. You've got craft beers, you have specific, champagnes and wines and things like that.
Music.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're needed, and you don't have to have a massive operation to thrive. The craft is they're going to have their own thing, and they have their place in the industry that's just waiting for them to step into that position. So I think that if it's easier, they would definitely come in, and I think it would be rewarding and fulfilling for them when they see so many people that are benefiting from what they have, and just kind of seeing that feedback. I think that'll give them a sense of purpose and fulfillment that nothing else will.
Yeah, there's so much creativity and innovation that they have to add to the conversation. Yes. Some of the most beautiful flowers and medicine have come from people who are working in the traditional market. There's just such thoughtfulness behind that. We've talked about, the technical assistance and how the organization came to be. What are some initiatives that you're working on now that you're excited about?
One, the scheduling.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like the scheduling will solve a lot at the end of the day. Yes. But the biggest stepping stone besides the scheduling, I would say, is to get people more aware of what we're doing in the party. Awareness is key. And like I said earlier, and me and sis say this all the time. We could talk all day, but we're not doing anything if we don't unite.
Right.
We want to let people know we're not a threat to your business. We're not able to touch the plant to compete. We want to just get people to understand what we're about. And I believe if they really sat and thought about it, like, you know what, they they got something going. If they would just take the time to listen. But it's so much that goes on in these events that, we take these cars and we don't really pay attention to it. Like me and my sis, we took a gang of cars from these conventions. Have we called everybody back? No, we haven't. Being transparent. And I think it's gonna take more of community panels, not just brand panels talking about their business at these events. It's going to take more of community awareness and to let people know what we're about so we can just get them to unify. Because the main goal of it all is to unify. There's no reason that the tobacco industry can flourish. The liquor industry can flourish because they got they shit together at the end of the day. If we're $1 trillion industry, 160, 170 million registered voters, there's no reason that we cannot make a difference. Why we can't make a difference? Because we're here. We're not here. Right. So I really think, man, just in layman terms, it's not hard to do. Just check out what we're doing. We don't have all the answers. Maybe you can come aboard and represent your state, just like any other political party. Represent your state. Let's make a change. And I think that's one of our main initiatives, besides the scheduling, is getting more awareness about the party to unify.
Yes, absolutely. Bringing all these groups together, because there's so many that are out there that either haven't worked with each other or won't work with each other, because as you had mentioned earlier about, this cage match for relevancy. I don't understand it. I call it main character syndrome, but
somebody else calls it Cannabisaurus Rex.
Wow, I love that. That is funny, but because it's like, you don't have to be front and center all the time. It's not about you. It's bigger than you. And that's where I think if people learn to not make it about them or even just simply about their organization, that's all pride and ego. You don't have to be the only one standing at the top of that mountain. If we're all there, we can do more, because it's a lot of work. And for one to try to take on everything and do everything, it's not possible. That's why we all need to work together. And we may have solutions you don't, you have solutions we don't, and so on and so forth. So that's the reason why there's so much power in us unifying and not thinking about, oh, well, you're normal, you're MCBA, and you're M4MM. Like, we all need to work together, because it's not like everybody knows who you are. Like, this is cannabis. The cannabis industry is large, but it's small at the same time. Everybody don't know you. Outside of cannabis, most people may not even know who you are. Or
unless you've done something messed up.
Right. Now that, because that's like front headlines, but most people don't know who you are. So if we're not getting to the people.
This episode is brought to you by Fat Nugs Magazine, a global perspective of cannabis and stoner culture as a bridge to the rest of the world. Right now, you can join Fat Nugs Magazine, Beard Bros Farms, Freedom Grow, and Jailed for Weed in the upcoming Prisoners Edition, and help spotlight current and past cannabis prisoners and their stories, because no one should be in jail for a plant. Find Fat Nugs Magazine's beautiful print copies at your local dispensary, fatnugsmag.com, and on socials. Cannabis culture welcomes us all.
What is the point in being known and having a big platform inside of cannabis if you're not reaching outside of that bubble, and you're not going into other spaces, you're not talking to other organizations, or you're not trying to find ways to where we can normalize cannabis to the point where we're collaborating with nonprofit organizations that cannabis research can actually benefit, like American Heart Association or cancer foundations. That's how we normalize this. We have to start talking to other people and educating them, because then it gives them a different perspective. And now we have the opportunity to create things that's going to bring in more research, create things where we can have more white papers and we can have more information that's easily accessible to the everyday person, and breaking it down and simplifying it in a way to where they can understand and digest it. Because I know all the terminology it can be a little, complicated if you're not an herb nerd. So it's going to take for people to, bring down, those barriers, bring down those silos and work together, because I have never seen anything like it where it's always one organization or one group. When there's a town hall or where there's something in DC, why not invite everybody out? Because it'll look so much more powerful with all of us standing there together than just one group or one organization. And I think that that's where a lot of the disconnect happens. So it's no different from what we see between the two parties. And we're the party that's here to unite them all, not just all the organizations in cannabis, but to unite both sides of the Democratic side and the Republican side, because we all have to work together anyway. And it's for the best interest of the people, because that is what you are in position to do. And the organizations in cannabis have to think the same way. It's not about you. You are here as a representation of this plant and the people. So if you're not uniting them and you're not even uniting together, how can you preach a message of unity and you're not even unifying with other groups and organizations that have the same goal? That's what is so confusing. We all have the same goal.
Yeah.
We all want the same thing. Why aren't we working together to make that happen? So we're not a threat. We're not competition, as my brother said, and we're here to work with everybody. But it's going to take a collective effort. And the only way that we can do that is if we begin to talk to one another, meet with each other, get the community involved, meet them where they are, hold a town hall and invite all the people in and say, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going to be, so they can tell us what's wrong and where they're not being represented. And then we can go back to the people that make those decisions and have those positions of power and say, this is coming directly from your constituents, and then give them the resources to advocate for themselves and empower themselves, because most don't know who to contact or who they can present their issues to. And that's what we're here as, that umbrella, so we can all bring those issues under one place and say, okay, this is what we need to tackle and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of people have been really getting tired of the organizations putting money in them and feeling like they're not going anywhere, but it's because it's in an echo chamber and they're keeping to themselves. And if they're able, the wise person shares their resources as widely as possible to have overlap, because we are stronger together. It's a better investment. And then we won't be having people so fatigued that are running businesses and they're like, I want to be represented. I want to have someone lobbying for me, but I'm afraid to give the money because it hasn't done a damn bit of good in the past decade for me. For people who want to engage and learn more about what you do, come to events, offer help, how do they do that?
Well, one, they can go to our website, www.unitedempowermentparty.org. We are on Instagram as @UnitedEmpowermentParty, and we are on Twitter @theofficialuep. And of course, you can always go to our brother's page, Redman Gilla. You can go to my Instagram and Twitter. It's the same @Shiso Brooklyn. That's Shiso BRKLYN. And of course, you can find Keedy Weedy, who's our Director of Community Outreach, on IG and Twitter as KEIDYWEEDY. So there's multiple ways that you can get in contact with us. But as far as the website, we do get a lot of messages sometimes. So don't be discouraged if you don't get an answer or response right away. We're going through them. If you want to shoot an email, to myself or to Keedy, you can definitely send us a direct message on Instagram so that we can give you our email and you can hit us directly. But there's multiple ways, you know, to get to us. We're not untouchable. We're not out of reach. We want to engage with everyone, but we do have a small team, so we're going to be adding additional people to our team as well so that we can broaden our reach. So definitely feel free to contact us as well if you want to find ways to volunteer, get involved, especially with some of the things that we're building this year to engage in other spaces. So definitely stay tuned for that.
And then, Red,
Yes.
gotta ask, when's the next album dropping?
Well, besides the one I just dropped in December.
Yeah, because I know you're always going.
Yeah, I just dropped one in December. It's in December, the 24th. It's on fire right now. It's called Muddy Waters 2. It's streaming everywhere. If you don't got that album, pick it up. Go stream it right now. Muddy Waters 2 is out under my label, Gilla House, Riverton Entertainment. First time I dropped my album under my label, so I'm proud of that.
Congrats.
Shout out to my team, Groundwork Distro, my big bro, James Ellis, my manager. Yeah, I dropped the album right before Christmas, the last quarter. That's unheard of. No one drops an album in the last quarter because all the music industry shuts down like maybe after the 17th or 18th of December. So I took a chance of dropping that album, which I felt, you know, God gave me the green light to do it anyway. And it's been successful. It's still going hard. I just dropped the video yesterday with Method Man. Yesterday is lit, is crazy. The album is going. I'm trying to drop another album maybe in 6 to 7 months. So yeah, it's doing great out there. Here's the thing. I'm supplying my target audience, meaning I'm bringing back that 90s feeling, if you will, Sarah, of the music. I know a lot of people are not getting that eargasm that they used to get from music. But my album, I can really say, is giving a lot of people that 90s eargasm, sorry, that 90s eargasm that they've been needing, because our 90s audience, they're grown now. You feel me? They're the soccer moms now that used to be the girls in the club. They're soccer moms now. They're working. They're teachers. They got occupations now. So, but they're still cool, if you will. And they still like to listen to hip hop. And a lot of this new music is not doing it for them. So it was my job to come through and save the day and get them some music. And so the album Muddy Waters 2 is out right now. It's been a highly anticipated album for the last 15 to 17, 20 years. Damn near
28 years.
Shut up, sis. And it's finally out, and it got 32 joints on there. 32. So, and it's an hour and 20 minutes long. So you will not get bored. You would definitely be entertained the whole album.
Oh,
especially the skits.
Yes.
I personally was happy when I learned he was going to do skits. I had to be like, I couldn't say nothing. And I did good because I said nothing.
Right.
But the skits, I could not wait, because in the 90s, I remember just about all the skits from all my favorite albums, and some of them like verbatim. So I was so happy he brought that back, because even R&B albums had skits back then. So
right.
That and it was it's like 90s but current at the same time, which is very hard to do. Like you did that. Like
yes.
It's hard to pull off bringing that era and this era together. And I think that just from what he did, bringing old school hip hop and new school together, I feel like this album is like a perfect balance of both. And I think it also is like challenging artists to really take their creativity to that next level and just jump out there and do it. Don't care about what somebody thinks or if it fits a perfect form. No, if it's you, do it, because people are looking for authenticity and looking for something to believe in. And I think just bringing that all full circle between culture and music and even what we're doing as a party, that's exactly what we're doing. We're giving people authenticity and we're giving people something to believe in. And right now, people need that more than ever.
That's right. And to let y'all know, even though we are a party, the United Empowerment Party, we be clowning.
Yes.
All right? Don't never judge us by our posts or when we out and you see us laughing, because you gotta have fun being 10 toes down for this industry like this, because we, like I said, like Sis said, we work without a financial support. Everything is out of our pocket, but we do it for the people and most of all the plant. So when you see us out and you see us clowning, don't judge us, because we are for that purpose over profit. And if y'all looking in the background and you see all these women clothes up there, this is not my closet. This is my girl closet. So I just want to make that clear. People like, damn, I'm looking at his closet and he got nut. This is my girl closet.
This is one thing, as you can see, sir. If you have an interview with this man right here,
No. If you have an interview with this woman right here, then you're gonna expect nothing but laughter. We're serious. We know our jobs, but we love to have fun at the end of the day.
Yes, we do.
You know,
we love to see people laugh and smile and have a good time.
Exactly.
Yes,
if you don't have the laughter, if you don't have the joy, what do you have?
Right.
Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree. And that's why we're using the party as a platform to bring different communities together. And we had a blast at our first cannabis and gaming tournament, Free to Green.
Tournament.
Yes. It was amazing. The gamers were amazing. All the people in the cannabis community. Shout out to everybody that came out and supported. Big shout out to Dashida Dawson. She came out and a lot of people were able to meet her and talk to her with her being executive director of Cannabis NYC. So we saw so much community come together. We had the crypto community out. We had the anime community. It was just a big melting pot of people from so many different walks of life and just different spaces. And, you know, it was really the epitome of what we're about. So, so definitely stay tuned. We shall be having more fun events like that and just tapping into other spaces to bring more people, you know, together. I'm a gamer myself. So, you know, that world and cannabis is always, you know, collided and always, you know, was relevant with each other. So it was fun to do, and we look forward to doing more things in that space also.
Shout out to OSNYC too for
big shout out to OSNYC. Party. Yes. Weed Maps, like Nerds Clothing, like there's so many people that supported.
Shout out to Greg.
Yes, it was great. It really was great. And we had a lot of fun.
I love that. Well, will you come back and geek out with me another time?
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Yeah. I love
absolutely. You got to come to one of our events whenever you in around the way. You in New York and you hear we doing something, or you hear we doing something not around your way. You got to pull up. That's all.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would love that. I mean, it was so good to see both of you in Vegas, and you know, I mean, Sephida, you and I got to geek out a little bit, which was fun. I was like, yeah, I can't wait to really get down and start talking. And so it's anytime. I'm down anytime. You let me know. And we need to, like, in, you know, maybe, well, in the very near future, because there's a lot going on, we have a lot more stuff to unpack. And anything I can do to support you both, you know, I'm down to.
Thank you, Sara.
We appreciate that so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It means a lot that you came on. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Anytime. You need us, we here. That's what it's all about. It's about spreading the awareness, and we appreciate you even allowing us on your platform to talk about it, you know, because a lot of people wouldn't even let us on because of the fabric that we're talking about, feel me? But you're not scared, and we appreciate you. We really appreciate you for that.
We got to have these conversations, and we're better together.
That's right. Yes.
So we're here. We're the Can Avengers. I'm Captain Cannabis.
I'm Captain Cannabis too, baby.
So don't mind me if you see me with my cape flying through somewhere. So
flying high.
do have a cape that I wear. So like I said, we just want to make it fun and engaging, and education doesn't mean boring. You know, learning about this industry there's so much that people will appreciate and will realize this is fun. We have a lot of fun, in cannabis, even when there's not so fun things that are going on.
Right.
So we are definitely here in any way we possibly can be.
Well,
Right.
thank you for your advocacy and for being bright lights, because we need more of that.
Thank you, Sarah, for having us.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Absolutely.
And everyone, remember, if you like listening, please give us a review, share it with a friend. Let us know what your favorite episodes are. And if you'd like to stay in touch over social media, we are Planted with Sara Pion on Facebook and Planted with Sara on Instagram and Twitter. You can also go to our website, www.plantedwithsara.com, or listen to us on our parent network, Radio Misfits Network, where there are other great podcasts, like one of my favorites, the Winemakers Podcast. So check it out. You can listen to Planted wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, whether that's Pandora, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple, Stitcher, Tune in. We are there. So join us. And until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, it's a wild world out there. Be good to one another. Until next time, take care.